reporters with the Ojai Valley News. I am here with Tim Krout, Brenda Krout, and Leslie Clark. They are with the group who are the proponents of Measure O, which is a ballot initiative that will be on the November 5th ballot for Ojai City voters. And Measure O seeks to keep these City Hall campus pickleball courts open for play. And so I'm going to let Brenda, Tim, and Leslie introduce themselves and say why this issue is so important to you. Let's start with Leslie. You can look at me.
Okay. I'm Leslie Clark. I'm a fourth generation Ojai resident. I had a gallery for 25 years on Ojai Avenue called Nomad, and I retired in 2019 and became a totally addicted pickleball player. And in my I used to be a tennis player, and in my retirement, I play pickleball almost every day, and it keeps me happy.
Thank you.
I'm Brenda Krout. I grew up here in Ojai. I've been here. I started kindergarten at the Ojai schools and graduated from Nordoff, and have been here and married my high school sweetheart, and we've been here ever since. And we like being able to be in the city. We started this pickleball here in Ojai because we wanted to create a community, and which we have created a community that is very close. I would have never met Leslie, or we're not in the same little social group. You know, everybody's in different social groups, and we just know so many people that are our neighbors and have become very good friends through the camaraderie that's here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tim Krout. I was one of the original starters of the sport here in town. The reason why I wanted to start it in town because it was not available to anybody here in Ojai. I had been traveling for quite a few years to go play pickleball elsewhere, and when I talked to my wife about starting it here, she warned me one thing. She said, remember that you're going to be dealing with people, and people are people. So with that in mind, we started grassroots. We started at Matilla Hall Junior High School in 2017 and started growing then. I went to all the local schools and hotels and restaurants and advertised that this sport was available for free at Matilla Hall, and it started growing from there. We eventually were asked to leave at Matilla Hall. I approached the city about playing within the city, and these courts, this abandoned tennis court was offered. And so we resurrected the tennis court and began play in 2019, and it's just grown tremendously since then. When I originally thought about creating pickleball in Ojai, I thought it would be great for me, so I'd have a place to go and play locally. That's become secondary. It's the relationships that I've created, that I've had with the locals. I had a gal tell me that I saved her life because her husband had died, and she started playing pickleball, and that saved my life. So that made everything that I'd done prior to that worth it, and I will continue to do that.
Okay. And so getting to the specifics of Measure O, kind of talk a little bit about why these courts are so important. And so just Soul Park pickleball courts have now been open for 1 week, and those are in city limits. And so kind of thinking about that, why is that not enough? Why are these courts also needed? Why is it so important for these courts to be open for play? Whoever wants to answer.
Well, yeah, you go ahead, go ahead.
I can start. The Soul Park, the weekend that they opened, they were totally full. There were 16, I mean, how many courts? All the courts were full, 24 players on court, and the paddle saddle was full. And there were people waiting for the paddle saddle.
What's the paddle saddle?
The paddle saddle is a method of giving the next person an opportunity to play. So you put your paddle.
You're in line.
You're in line.
yeah.
Okay.
So that there were 16 people in line to play all the time and more waiting. So it was, and then on Monday and Tuesday and it is still very full. 90% of the people that are out there are from here because we can't play here. They started pickleball because of Tim and Brenda's and then the pickleball nonprofit's efforts to promote the sport. And it is so popular that we need that space, we need this space, and there's probably going to be a couple of more spaces opening up, but they will all be full. I am sure they will all be full. One of the things that's very difficult for people who are used to playing here to play at Soul Park is that most of us are older, and the heat is extreme at Soul Park. This is shady. Also, it's difficult for people who've been riding their bikes here. It's very easy to get here on a bicycle because the bike path goes right here. But the access by bike is not as easy. And it's not free. You know, the cost of an annual pass is not extreme, but for some people, for a high school kid who's at home on vacation, you know, he doesn't want to pay the daily fee, or he won't. We appreciated the atmosphere here because nobody is excluded. We provided the equipment, the paddles, the balls, and the learning. If anybody had never played pickleball and they stepped onto these courts, one of us would teach them. And that openness to everyone is what we really love about these courts.
So everybody loves pickleball. There seems like it just, you know, different ages, all of that. But really it does come down to the noise in terms of this, you know, the complaints that are being raised regarding opening these courts. So talk a little bit about that and how, maybe if you could provide a little bit too of the history that's happened and the efforts to respond to the noise, the concerns about noise that have been raised here.
Right. You want to address that?
Sure. So after these courts opened in 2019, and then they were completely resurfaced and color-coded and finished to professional grade, we started getting complaints from the neighbors. So immediately after that, the city started conducting tests. There were probably a minimum of 6 to 7 tests that I know of that were done. There was a professional test engineer that was brought in by the city, paid by the city. There were some recommendations that came out of that. We conformed to those recommendations. We started using the quietest paddle on the market, the quietest ball on the market, and today I have, with my handheld device, gone across the street and down the street and listened to the play when it's fully played, 16 people playing, and the decibel level is around 42 decibels. Now, 60 dBs is you and I talking, and the decibel level across the street was 42. So I think that the manufacturers have seen the problem, have resolved the problem, and we have conformed. We have done everything the city has asked us to do. I think in a nutshell, what's really probably the most problem is that this area was vacated for 50 years. There was nothing here. The city allowed us to resurrect it, to change it into pickleball. That started people coming. So there's 50 years of nobody here, and then all of a sudden there's quite a bit of a group of people here. Just like Leslie was saying about Soap Park, we'll have 16 people playing and maybe 16 or 20 people waiting. So that's quite a group of people. But again, I think the manufacturers, they recognize the problem. They have solved the problem. And I think that equipment is going to get quieter. And as it does, people are going to be using that equipment. So I think that we have addressed that pretty well. Also, when we first started, a couple of our players went to the neighbors and asked them if we could install thicker pane windows. And they said no. We asked them if we could install maybe a water fountain to deaden the noise, and they said no. So I think that we have really tried to be good neighbors, and sometimes it's just hard when you're dealing with maybe people that aren't reasonable. So
Can I interject something?
Yes, yes.
We didn't just leave it to chance for people to use quiet paddles. We provided the paddles. So no one could step out onto these courts without using the very quietest paddles that are available. The other thing is there is no sound ordinance applying to public parks.
Right.
So we are in compliance with the law. And we also, when we canvassed the neighborhood to try to get signatures for the ballot initiative, 2 of the neighbors on this street and 1 on another street did not sign. Everyone else signed. That means that there were 13 neighbors that are happy for us to be here, and 3 that are not, plus the investors in their properties are not happy, so.
I mean, let's talk about those few residents you mentioned and a property owner. And kind of you mentioned, Tim, they were here a long time, it was quiet, there was not a lot going on, and now there's this big change. Why in your view is that something that is reasonable, right? You said something reasonable. Like, why should that be something reasonable that those folks should have to deal with? Should the measure pass?
well, again, all I could say to that is we have complied with what the city has asked. We have used the equipment that's available on the market, and it is a public space to be used for the public. I don't own this park. I don't own any public space. It's for everybody's enjoyment. So,
Yeah, I think that's the most important aspect of this, is that even if it was empty for decades, it's a public park. It's called Libby Park. It is part of Libby Park. If I move in next door to a park, you're going to expect noise from a park. You hope that there is people utilizing that park that your tax dollars are paying for. Just the fact that the city and no other group chose to utilize this and let it deteriorate. I mean, like Tim said, when the city said, well, why don't you use this court? I mean, we came out here and looked at it. You could barely even walk out there. I mean, there was volunteer trees growing up everywhere. It was dangerous to walk around there. And so just because the public space hasn't been used, it doesn't change its purpose. And it is for the public to use. And I know it's been mentioned that, yes, this is a park, but it's a quiet park. Mm-hmm. Well, the only quiet park park that I've ever known of or heard anyone refer to is a cemetery. That is a quiet park. Those are parks. Most of them are park districts, cemetery districts. But this was not a cemetery, and it had a tennis court in it. And it used to have a badminton court, and there used to be even a little golf course, little putting green, kind of miniature golf thing here. So it's always been a recreation area. Just because it got neglected and wasn't used didn't change that from being a public recreation area.
And none of its previous uses have benefited more people than
No,
this.
no.
This benefits way more people than any other use. And we kind of feel that it's a dangerous precedent to set to allow two neighbors to shut down a public park.
Right.
How many people does it benefit and how many people does it disturb? I think it's a majority, and we aren't about.
Yeah, that's part of democracy, I believe, yeah. But
Now, would you live next to a pickleball court?
There are communities being built around pickleball courts right now. Communities.
yes,
So,
we would.
Yes, absolutely. I would. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people are moving. We've had people, some out-of-town people, a couple of different couples over the years that we've been here, come here to visit because they said, and older people that are retired, and they said, we are looking to move and we're looking at places to move to, but we've got criteria. And one of the criteria is that there's a pickleball facility close by. And we have had at least two different couples that we know of move to this area based on that. So people, they don't try to choose something far away from it. They're trying to choose something close to these types of facilities. Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, I don't know if you noticed, so in the paper today, there was a little bit about the clarification regarding the hours related to the measure. So in my reporting, there was actually some back and forth with myself and the city to really get clear about what the measure would do. And so my understanding that I have been told by the city is that should the measure pass and the courts were to reopen, that they would reopen to the hours that were in place when the courts were closed, which the courts would be closed Mondays, there's summer hours and winter hours, a block in the morning, a block in the afternoon, and that.
Right.
And closed Saturdays and Sundays.
Well, and it's posted over there too.
Yeah.
And so, but that the measure would allow the city to expand hours up to the regular hours for all city parks, which are 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so I'm wondering, as the measure proponents, if you would be satisfied with the I'll use the term restricted hours that were in place when the courts closed, or if there would be an effort or a desire to expand those hours, which is what the measure would allow.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I just wanted to address with your hours, talking about the 7 or 6 to 10 or whatever you said. We have had it said before many times at the podium that we play 24/7 here, and then there's noise all hours of the day and night. There is not going to be anybody playing on these courts after dark. There are no lights. So that is a misconception. So that would never be the hours as far as going to 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and another thing that they have claimed that the city would lose control of the hours. We've always complied with their request. Actually, if you look into it, the original complaint, and they set the hours. The neighbors set the hours. We did not. I was not asked what hours you would like to play. I was not asked what days you would like to play. We were told, and it was posted, when you will play and when you will stop, period. And we've complied with every request.
But so I was asking because what I understand legally, the way the measure is written, is that it would allow the city, without a vote of the people, to expand the hours. Like, so let's say the courts reopen and it's just as popular it was, everybody's loving pickleball, and folks say, hey, we would like to play 7 days a week, daylight hours. Apparently, the measure allows for that it would be a vote of the city council. And so folks who are in opposition are saying that that would be too much, and there's a concern about that. And so I'm wondering if that's something, I mean, maybe it hasn't been discussed or you haven't pondered it, but is that something that the association would want to do?
I think
yeah.
we haven't discussed this.
Okay.
Right.
So it's unclear to us what the hours would be. But I think generally, we love these courts so much. And we have always wanted to be good neighbors. If we're playing restricted hours, we're stuck with that, okay, it's better than nothing. We'd much rather have full freedom to play as if it were a public park, which it is. But again, we've tried to be good neighbors, and if that's what it means, then, I think we'd probably accept the restrictions.
What I'm saying is the measure actually eliminates some of those restrictions because it would allow, the city couldn't have the courts open for less hours without another ballot initiative.
Right.
But the city, with a city council vote, could expand up to the regular park hours that are at all city parks. And so.
Well, I think
Does
that
my
would be
question make
something
sense?
that, yes, we understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I think, like Leslie said, we haven't really discussed that. Our focus has been that we want to get these courts back open. What hours we're going to have or what, well, that would be something that we will have to discuss with the city council or, at the time. Our important focus, what we want, is to have these courts back open so that we can have the people that Leslie mentioned, most especially the ones that they just can't play out in that sun. So they have a place to play. So, and like we have said, we've always tried to be good neighbors. So to think that we are going to be outrageously ridiculous in our requests and stance now is pretty insulting, because we have done everything that we can to try to be good neighbors.
Yeah, I have come by here before on closed hours, closed days, and asked people not to play.
And it's usually out of town
Yeah,
people.
folks
Yes.
who- they
Yes.
don't know the.
Yes,
Right.
and that's another thing that's been said very often that is incorrect, is that we do not adhere to the hours. There is not one, I mean, I'd be willing to swear to that there is not one regular pickleball player that has played here at the wrong time of day. There are people that come and play here at the wrong time of day, but like you said, it's every time that any of us, and there's several of us, have stopped by. I mean, we hear people, other players that say, oh, I went by the courts and I saw somebody, so I stopped and talked to them, but they were from out of town, and they saw the courts. And because, I mean, the mindset for the most people in the public, in general public, is when you see a park and courts or any kind of play area, you don't look around for the sign to see if the play areas are open. It's daytime and it's a park, so it must be open, So that has been our experience, contrary to what has been said.
And I think that's very rare because I.
It has been very rare. I
live
drive
that
here
way.
all the time
I
too.
drive by here all the time.
Yeah, it is.
And when, in restricted hours, when it's off hours, there's nobody here
Right.
98% of the time.
Oh, I agree. Mhm.
I feel like we've touched on all the specific questions I had. Is there something else you think I should have asked that we didn't cover, or something else that you want voters to make sure voters know about the measure and why,
I'd like to discuss or address the cost issue
Okay.
because there's been a mailer that was sent out by the opposition that really misrepresented a lot of the things, of a lot of the issues. One of the things is that the cost of this, the city did invest $9,000 initially. Everything else has been paid for by the pickleball nonprofit, by the pickleball community, who invested in something that they really wanted and loved. But they invested in something and made it open for everybody. And then the neighbors started complaining and the costs started building. The sound tests, the sound mitigating walls. That's the only reason there's been any cost. And those are really minor for the amount of people that are enjoying these courts. So retaining this, now that everything, the investment has already been made, costs nothing. It will not cost the city anything. And they indicated that it could bring lawsuits. Well, if the two neighbors that don't like it, or the three, want to sue, there is no case. We have spoken to many attorneys, and we are in compliance with the sound ordinances. What can they sue for? There is no case. So that is not the reality of the potential costs to the city. So keep these courts open at no cost, and it's free to everybody.
Okay.
Well, to add to that is that from a cost standpoint, like Leslie said, the city did pay the $9,000 to have it paved, because I mean it had to be paved. But it was sweat equity from all of the pickleball players and their money that did the surface and the lines and bought the nets and maintain it every day out here cleaning the leaves off. And with the trees, there's a lot of birds that do their little thing too, and it stains and it can deteriorate the courts. So I mean, we're out there on hands and knees in the mornings with wiping up the dog poo. I mean the bird poo. And so I mean, we have loved these courts. I mean, they have been our courts that we put our money in it. We put our sweat equity into it, and
that's
then
created such a lovely community.
Yes, it has.
Friends,
yes.
That because we work together, we play together.
Right.
And yes, we go out to Soul Park and love it out there
Yeah,
too.
yes, that's fine.
But we wouldn't have had that community that is now at Soul Park
Without this.
Well, when the city first approached us about the restricted hours, this was several years ago, I had told the then council members and James Vega, I said, if you restrict us within these certain hours in the morning, 8:30, 11:30, and the hours in the afternoon, you're actually going to create more noise. You think so? Why? I said, well, because if you allow it to spread out over the day, people are going to come at different times, and there'll be less people during that day. They won't be congregated in the morning or afternoons. So that had created more noise at certain times. Allowing longer hours or hours stretched out during the day would be quieter.
Yeah,
Because people can come kind of at their leisure versus,
Yes.
I gotta go play, I only have this block of time, so
Right.
everybody goes
Correct.
at the same
And
time.
That's-
if Measure O passes and we have Soul Park, it's going to be quieter
Yes.
here. Because
Right.
there are fewer people going to be
Yes.
desperate
Right.
to play here.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Originally, my idea when I asked my wife if she would be willing to support me was to benefit myself. That is not the case now. That's secondary. It's the relationships that I've built with the community and my neighbors, and that's what I value the most.
Another thing that I wanted to address that was on the mailer from the opponents is that it takes the control out of.
Away from the
local
city
control.
and, yeah.
Who are the voters, if not local? Who are the players? 98% of them are local. So I don't know how it could possibly take control out of local control. That doesn't make sense to me. Because the city certainly does control it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And is there a website where folks can go to get more information about the initiative?
We don't have that on our website yet, but we will eventually. It's ojaipickleball.org. And so there will be some information on the website about it. And that's where you would need to go. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks
You're
for having
welcome.
us.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you.